These are the birds in your backyard that vanish every single evening, and almost nobody who feeds them daily has ever figured out where they actually go. Every evening, the chickadees, robins, cardinals, and sparrows that spend the day at your feeders simply disappear, and by the time this video ends, you'll know exactly where different backyard birds spend the night, why they pick those spots over their own nests, and what's actually happening inside their bodies while they sleep. The goal here isn't just where, it's why, because the answer touches on survival strategy, physiology, and some genuinely strange science along the way. Let's start with the biggest misconception people have about this. The nest is not a bed. Most people assume a bird sleeps in its nest, and that assumption makes intuitive sense. You build a house, you sleep in it. But that's not how it works for the vast majority of backyard birds. Ornithologists have a specific term for where a bird sleeps, and it's called a roost. And a roost is not the same thing as a nest. Not even close. A nest exists for one job only, and that job is incubating eggs and raising chicks. Once that job wraps up, once breeding season ends, the nest gets abandoned as a living space almost entirely. Cup nesters like robins build something fast, exposed and flimsy, use it hard for a few weeks, then walk away from it for good. There's a practical reason for that abandonment too. A nest that's carried a full breeding cycle picks up parasites along the way, mites and lice, building up over the weeks chicks spend developing inside it, which makes that nest a genuinely unpleasant place to spend the night. So birds go looking elsewhere, choosing a completely separate location built around two priorities: staying hidden from predators and staying warm. That's roosting. And here's the thing that makes it remarkable. It's a decision birds make fresh every single evening for essentially their entire lives outside of breeding season. Why where a bird sleeps is a survival decision. Roost selection isn't casual, and it definitely isn't random. Two pressures drive almost all of it: avoiding predators and holding on to body heat. Small birds are fighting a real physical disadvantage once night falls. Their size gives them a high surface area relative to their volume, which means heat escapes their bodies fast. And combined with several hours of going without food, a cold night turns into an actual survival test rather than a minor inconvenience. You can watch birds prepare for this in real time. In the hour or two before sunset, many species ramp up their feeding, something researchers call evening fueling, packing in energy reserves specifically to get through the overnight fast ahead. Then, as dusk closes in, watch closely and you'll see them puff up. That's not birds looking round and cute for a photo. Fluffing the feathers traps a layer of insulating air right against the skin, functioning almost like a built-in jacket, and it's one of the simplest, most effective survival tools a bird owns. By the time a bird reaches its actual roost, it's already done two things. It's eaten as much as it can, and it's physically insulated itself, and now all that's left is finding somewhere safe to vanish into, where different backyard birds actually sleep. This is where things get specific, and if you keep nest boxes in your yard, this section matters for more than curiosity. Cavity roosting species, birds like chickadees, titmice, nuthatches, and woodpeckers will often sleep inside tree cavities. And here's what matters if you maintain nest boxes yourself. These same birds will often use a nest box as a roosting site well outside of breeding season, not just during it. The box itself, the enclosed cavity, is what's valuable to them, not the nesting material sitting inside it. Bluebirds do this too, and eastern and western bluebirds are known specifically for using nest boxes as winter roosts, with multiple birds sometimes packing into a single box together purely to share body heat on cold nights. If you've ever debated whether to leave nest boxes up through winter instead of taking them down once breeding season ends, that behavior answers the question. Those boxes are still doing work. Other species take a completely different route. Robins, house sparrows, and northern cardinals skip cavities entirely, roosting instead in dense shrubs, thick hedges, vines, or conifer trees, anywhere the foliage is heavy enough to break the wind and hide them from predators moving through the dark. Cardinals and sparrows tend to do this alone or in pairs, but robins are the interesting case here because their behavior actually shifts with the calendar. During breeding season, robins roost solo or in pairs near their nesting territory, and that changes completely once breeding season ends. Come fall and winter, robins start forming large communal roosts, sometimes numbering in the thousands, all packed into dense trees together. And that shift from solitary roosting to massive communal roosting is exactly what leads into the most dramatic part of the story. The birds that sleep in the thousands. Some species don't just roost in small family groups, they roost in numbers that are genuinely hard to picture. American crows make this clear. Outside of breeding season, especially heading into winter, crows form communal roosts ranging from a few hundred birds up to gatherings so large they're hard to fully picture. Some of these roosts form near or even inside urban areas. There's a documented reason crows get pulled toward cities for this. Urban areas run a few degrees warmer than the surrounding countryside, an effect called the urban heat island, and cities also tend to hold fewer large owls hunting through them, which means a crow choosing where to spend a freezing night can genuinely find the city the safer, warmer option over open farmland. This isn't new behavior either. One of the most famous historical examples happened in Danville, Illinois, where enormous numbers of crows gathered night after night, drawing national attention and eventually organized efforts from residents to disperse them, driven by the noise, the mess, and disease concerns that come with that many birds packed into one place. That tension between crows finding cities genuinely useful for survival and humans finding a few 100,000 crows genuinely unbearable to live next to still plays out in various forms today. But if crows are impressive for scale, European starlings are impressive for something else entirely: choreography, the science behind murmurations. You've almost certainly seen footage of this even without knowing the name for it: massive swirling clouds of starlings twisting and reshaping in the sky right before sunset, moving like a single living thing. That behavior is called a murmuration, and it happens specifically in the moments right before starlings drop down into their communal roost for the night. For a long time, the explanation stopped at predator confusion, and that part still holds up. A shifting, unpredictable mass of thousands of birds makes it extremely hard for a hunting falcon or hawk to lock onto a single target. What's genuinely remarkable is that scientists have actually mapped out the mechanism behind it. Using stereo photography to track individual birds inside a murmuration, researchers found that each starling isn't reacting to the whole flock at once. It's tracking a small handful of its nearest neighbors, something around 7 birds. There's no leader in this system, no central coordination pulling the strings. Each bird just adjusts its position based on those few neighbors nearby, and that one simple local rule is enough to produce the massive, fluid, whole flock movement you see from the ground. It's one of the more elegant pieces of science attached to something as ordinary as birds settling in for bed. The specialists, swifts, and martins, a couple of species, take communal roosting somewhere stranger still. Man-made structures, chimney swifts, and on the west coast, vase swifts roost communally inside chimneys, especially during fall migration, with large numbers of birds funneling down into a single chimney at dusk. That funnel has become enough of a spectacle over time that certain sites have turned into known public viewing spots during migration season. Purple martins run a similar playbook, but at ground level rather than up a chimney. Ahead of migration, martins gather into large communal roosts, and in some cases, these have formed underneath bridges, large man-made structures offering the same basic package a dense tree or a chimney provides: shelter and safety in numbers. What's happening inside the bird that covers where birds go? But there's a quieter half of this story that might be more surprising than the locations themselves. What's happening physiologically once they actually settle in? Some small birds don't rely only on fluffed feathers and a sheltered spot to make it through a cold night. Their bodies do something more extreme than that. Black-capped chickadees lower their own body temperature overnight, dropping it roughly 10 to 12 degrees Fahrenheit below their normal daytime level. That drop isn't the bird's body failing or shutting down, it's controlled and deliberate. A regulated energy saving strategy the bird's own physiology manages on purpose. Hummingbirds push this even further, and here's why that has to happen. Their extremely high metabolism paired with tiny fat reserves means a hummingbird genuinely could not survive a cold night on stored energy using a normal resting metabolism. It would burn through everything it had before dawn arrived. Instead, some hummingbirds drop into actual torpor overnight, a state where heart rate and body temperature fall dramatically, putting the bird into something close to a temporary controlled hibernation until morning, when its metabolism ramps back up and normal activity returns. Between the insulating feather fluffing, the sheltered roost sites, the shared body heat inside nest boxes, and in some species, outright regulated hypothermia or full torpor, backyard birds are running a genuinely sophisticated survival system every single night of their lives, and almost none of it is visible to the person who filled the feeder that afternoon. The rhythm of it all put together, none of this is a one-time event. It's a repeating cycle that runs daily and shifts with the seasons. Every evening, birds fuel up, fluff up and move to a roost, and during breeding season that roosting stays solitary or paired close to nesting territory. That changes once breeding season ends and fall sets in, when species like robins, blackbirds, starlings, and crows shift toward communal roosting, building larger and larger groups as winter closes in, exactly when the risks from cold and predators run highest, and the benefits of numbers matter most. Migratory species stack another layer on top of that pattern, forming large, temporary communal roosts like the swift and martin gatherings, specifically as staging behavior before continuing their journey onward. None of this counts as scientific controversy. The mechanics of roosting are well understood and well documented at this point. If there's any tension in the story at all, it's a human one. The same crow roosts and starling murmurations that draw fascination and even tourism in some places get treated as a nuisance or even a pest problem by the people living closest to them. Same birds, same behavior, and the reaction completely depends on where you're standing. So the next time your feeders go quiet at dusk and the yard empties out, you'll know exactly what's happening. Somewhere nearby, in a nest box, a thick hedge, or a hollow in a tree, that same chickadee or bluebird or robin is fluffing its feathers, lowering its guard just enough to rest, and quietly running one of the most efficient survival systems in the animal kingdom until the sun comes back up. That's where your backyard birds go at night, and now you know why. If you want to know 5 pet parrot species you have to avoid, and 3 that make the best pets, that's exactly what we're covering next.